Hey, this is Chris from Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for watching. If you have ever accidentally superglued a pickup to the top of your guitar, click the subscribe button now. Okay, so today we're going to wet sand and buff this body for Matt so that he can play it tonight. And our buddy Joe Emery asked us what our process is for doing this, so I'm going to attempt to show you. I've got a block with a little bit of 400 paper on it, wet dry 400, and I've also got an orbital sander, and I'm going to use this on the back and the top with 800 and then 1200, and then we're going to go to the buffer. So this body turned out pretty smooth because I'm such an awesome painter, not because the paint's really good, it's the paint. But I've still got a few little blemishes in it, little like snots in it, and that's what I'm going to use the 400 block for. So I've got a squirt bottle full of water. This is the hot setup. Little cups of water that you keep dipping the paper into aren't the hot setup because whatever contaminants that you remove, you put in the water and then it'll get back on the paper and you can end up scratching your project again later. So we use this, spray it on, sand, and then wipe it off with a clean cloth or a really expensive paper towel. And on this, really all I'm going to do is just remove the boogers and the blemishes. I'm not going to try and flat sand the whole thing because I'll do that with the orbital sander with the 800 on it and it goes way faster. Okay, so I spent about 10 or 15 minutes with the 400 block, and you can probably see I didn't get all of the shine off it. I'm not flat sanding it with that. I'm going to do that with the orbital, but I got all of the little boogers and really big high spots out with the block. Now I'm going to use the orbital with the 800 on it. I ordered this sandpaper. This is waterproof, wet dry, from this place USA One Abrasives. It was actually really cheap. I think I spent, I think one of these was like $10 or $15 for 50 pieces, and we've had them for several years. It worked out really well, and you can get anything from these guys and they ship fast. You can't buy this stuff at Harbor Freight, and I don't know of a lot of automotive stores that you can buy this stuff either. So order it from them, USA1.com. I'm now officially a shill. Shill. Little water on the project, little water on the paper, make sure everything's clean, and go for it. Okay, so that was sanding to 800 with the orbital sander, and what I'm looking for when I do that is I want to get everything completely flat. I don't want to have any shiny spots or any orange peel that you can see anywhere. The 800 works really well, and we could almost stop at 800 with our new buffing wheel, but I'll go ahead and do it to 1200 because it only takes like 5 minutes, and then it takes just a little bit less time on the buffing wheel. So here's 1200. Alright, so that was 1200. That took about 5 minutes. On this guitar, I'm just going to do the top and the back. I'm going to flat sand those. The sides on this thing turned out really, really smooth, and I'd have to, well, the buffer will take care of everything on the sides that I want to get rid of, but it's really good. So now it's time to start buffing. There are other ways that you could do this that don't involve a buffer. The first way is by hand, and typically if you're doing that, you'd have to sand the body to a lot finer grit, which is no fun, because each time you sand it finer, the chances of re-scratching it are more. Also, hand buffing takes forever, and I don't know that I've ever hand buffed a guitar where I was like, yeah, that looks really good. It's just been good enough. Like, I'm tired of buffing, this looks good enough. You can buy, like at Harbor Freight, you can buy buffing buffers, like car buffers that work a little bit better, but once again, it's still a lot of hand work. Or you can just eventually step up to something like this that works really well, and I'm super happy with the way our finishes turn out now. Okay, so here's our buffer that Kevin built. It's similar to the StewMac one, but I don't think we spent quite as much money. We have two buffs. we have a medium cut buff, and we have a light cut buff. These are the compounds that we use. There's a medium one that's orange, obviously, and then there's a fine cut that's white. And I'll show you what we do. The first thing that we want to do is we want to clean some of this old buffing compound off of this, and we also want to warm up the wheel so that it'll take the compound easier and better. Everything that I've learned about buffing, I did not learn on YouTube because there's not a single video on how to buff a guitar on YouTube. So I'm not really flying blind anymore, but it's taken me a while to come up with this and figure out how to make it work quickly and without burning through a bunch of edges, which is something that you definitely don't want to do. So if you have any better suggestions on how to do it, let me know, because I'm all ears.
So that's heating the wheel?
Yeah, so this is heating the wheel, and it's also removing any of the old compound. I don't do this before every day that we buff, but I figure since we're making a video, we'll do it today. Alright, so that's that. And then you load the wheel up. I'll load it up a couple times during the process. And the secret to this is pretty heavy pressure with the body against the wheel. I don't ever want to clip an edge this way. I don't want the wheel to come into my edge here. I want the wheel to roll off the edge that way. That way you don't get any burn throughs around edges, especially around horns. These are really tricky. And I'll go one way, and then I'll go the other way. Because I'll put minor scratches in it this way, and then I'll hopefully remove them this way. Something like that. So, here we go. And you can see it shines up pretty fast. Okay, so that's finished with the medium cut wheel, and it's really shiny, but there's still, you know, it still leaves a little bit of scratches there because it's a medium wheel, so we'll do the fine wheel now. Alright, so now we're done with the fine wheel, and we have to let it cool off for a little while before we do the last two steps, and I think they might be the two most crucial steps to having this thing look like a mirror. It's really close, but these last two steps are going to totally fix that. Okay, so we've let it cool off for a little bit. That's the one thing that I think I learned from the Dan Erlewine video about buffing, is let it cool down before you wipe off any of the residue, because you could scratch it. I don't know if that's true with this paint. This is a little bit hardier paint than nitrocellulose lacquer is. That stuff will scratch if you breathe on it wrong. But I think it's not a bad idea to let it cool off. So I let it cool off, I wiped it down, and now the last two steps, and I think this really takes it over the top. It's really shiny, and we could probably just let it go, but if we do these next two things, it's gonna make it look even better. And that is to use two of my favorite products from Meguiar's, and I'm not a shill, I bought this stuff. You can buy it at, I don't think you can buy it at AutoZone and places like that. Well, actually, I think you can buy this. Yeah, the yellow wax and the Shellooe glaze. The Shellooe glaze goes on first, and it fills in any little scratches that are left over, and it's almost like it feels like it's conditioning the paint. And then when that's dry, we'll buff that off and we'll put on the yellow wax, and this thing will look like $1,000,000. And both of these are just wipe on kind of things. You don't actually have to spend very much time rubbing them. It's more like you're putting a coat of it on. Okay, so with the glazing compound, just rub it on and then rub it off while it's still wet. Okay, so that's the glazing compound. Now we're going to use the yellow wax. This stuff goes on similarly. Smear it on, rub it in, and then this one you let dry, and then we'll buff it off, and this thing will look like $1,000,000. And it smells like bananas, which I love. Alright, so once the wax dries, you buff it off, and hopefully your guitar looks like $1,000,000 like this one does. So if you have any questions about wet sanding or buffing or wax, or if you have any comments even about any of those things, leave them down below. So if you like the video, give us the thumbs up. If you like content like this, you might want to consider becoming a member on Patreon. So this is Chris at Texas Toast reminding you, if you're so smart, do it yourself. That's what we do. Thanks for watching.
Like that.